So welcome to this interview about a unique collaboration in cross-border legal education underway since 2005, the Kyoto and Tokyo Seminars in Japanese Law, co-hosted by Ritsumeikan University School of Law and the Australian Network for Japanese Law, ANJeL. And we're delighted to have those who've been foundational in running this program with us today. And I'll ask you each to introduce yourselves briefly, your areas of speciality and current roles, and your involvement, particularly in these Kyoto and Tokyo seminars in Japanese law. So, Professor Yamaguchi.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to join this program. So my name is Naoya Yamaguchi. I am a professor of law at the Ritsumeikan Law School in Kyoto. My specialty is juvenile justice and criminal procedural laws. I'm teaching the juvenile justice and criminal procedure at my law school and undergraduate school. So now I'm researching about neuroscience and law. So, and I'm very much interested in the juvenile justice and brain science. So I'm writing the books about that. So, my role in the Kyoto and the Tokyo seminar is I am a fully responsible position in Japan. I mean, I'm a director of both seminars from since 2017. So I'm very exciting to be a role of the director every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Yamaguchi. And Leon Wolff, please introduce yourself.
Hello, thank you. Yes, I'm Leon Wolff. I'm one of the founding co-directors alongside Luke and Kent of the Australian Network for Japanese Law. And my involvement in the Kyoto Seminar began when really the new postgraduate so-called US-style law school system started in Japan, and Ritsumeikan wanted to do something that represented its image for a globalized law school. And ever since that time, the Kyoto and Tokyo seminars, it first of all began as the Kyoto seminars and then expanded into Tokyo, has really been one of ANJeL's signature projects, whether in research, teaching, or community engagement. It really goes through across all three fields. And I've been lucky to teach in it every single year until, of course, COVID-19 struck and has affected us for 2021. My area of research, I've been a long time researcher in Japanese law. Most of my work concerns the intersection between commercial law and social justice, sort of the intersections between those fields, so employment law, discrimination rights, for example. And more recently, also inspired by Yamaguchi sensei's work on neuroscience, I've been looking at the role of emotions and the law, so sort of a biosocial, biocultural approach, and looking at that as a fresh way of looking at how the Japanese engage with the legal system.
Thank you, Leon. And Kent.
Thank you, Luke and colleagues. My name is Kent Anderson. I began association with this when I was a professor at Australian National University back in the first year, as Leon said, in the context of the Hoka Daigakuin movement and the start of the law school movement in 2004. I have missed 1 year teaching, but otherwise have taught into all of the other year and brought students through. I'm presently senior advisor to the Minister for Education, and so I do need to put on the record that I'm speaking in my personal capacity as an academic in this and not from the Australian government or the minister's perspective.
As was mentioned, it was inaugurated from 2005, initially with a few years of Japanese government funding as a program to help these new postgrad legal education programs developed in Japanese universities, aiming to not only expand the number of legal professionals in the narrow sense of those who go on to become lawyers, judges, and public prosecutors, but also to diversify their skill base and make them more effective legal professionals for the 21st century. So as part of this initiative, Ritsumeikan partnered with us in ANJeL to develop this program. So my next question is therefore, what exactly are the seminars? And related to that, who is involved and how is it taught? So perhaps Yamaguchi Sensei, we could begin with you.
And the Tokyo Seminar is a very unique program, as you explained. So in Japan, there is a small numbers of like this programs. So the unique means Japanese law professors and Australian professors like you jointly teach is Australian students and Japanese students. It is very unique. So the Japanese professors specialize in each area, so civil law, criminal law, and property law, any other areas. And as you, these three professors I'm discussing this program are specialized in the Japanese law. So, and we Japanese professors only know the Japanese law inside Japan. So our perspective is very narrow inside Japan, but the outside researchers like you have another perspective for the Japanese laws. So we discuss about the Japanese law inside and outside. That is a very good influence to the students. So students are very good opportunity to learn Japanese law inside Japan, outside Japan. It's very interesting for me. So.
We've already actually touched on two questions, which is when and why the Kyoto Seminar and then Tokyo Seminar programs were developed, namely around 2005 as part of an initially Japanese government-funded initiative to increase the numbers and skill base generally of Japan's future legal professionals as practicing lawyers, judges, and public prosecutors. And interestingly, this program has managed to continue without any government funding through to the present time. So my next question is to Professor Yamaguchi, and it is asking in a bit more detail what are the seminars, what sort of topics are covered, and who are the students that take the seminar courses. Thank you.
Kyoto Seminar and the Tokyo Seminar is a combination of the seminar in Ritsumeikan law schools. Kyoto Seminar is held in the Kyoto campus. The building right behind me is Ritsumeikan Kyoto campus. So the seminar will be held on the second floor of this building for 1 week. Usually the second week of the February. So Monday to Friday. So students must study in this building. The studying area is a general part of Japanese law. So civil law and criminal law and criminal procedure, civil procedure, and so on. So, and Tokyo Seminar is very specified, more specified in the law and economics. And at the Tokyo campus, right behind is Tokyo campus building. So unfortunately, this skyscraper is not our property, just we are renting the one floor, actually. Anyway, the students study in the 8th floor of the Tokyo and law and economics. And at the Tokyo seminar, lawyers who are specialized in the economy in Japan teaching about economy and law. So, and the Tokyo seminar is only 2 days seminar after the Kyoto seminar.
The students come from what sort of backgrounds in the program?
Okay, so as for the Australian students, as you know, we have the contract with the University of Sydney. So usually the students from University of Sydney and students from Queensland University of Technology and students from Australian National University. Last year, we had 63 students, 34 from University of Sydney, 14 from Queensland University, and 15 from ANU. And that is the Australian side. And in Japan, Japan side, the Japanese law school students join the program, but our law school is not so big, so small numbers of law students usually join, maybe less than 10 people. But these 2 years, we recruiting the undergraduate students who specialized in law. So now, last year, we had 20 Japanese students join the program. And we have the sister university, Asian Pacific University, that is international university who had international students learning. That student also joined the Tokyo and Kyoto Seminar from Africa, Europe, and East Asia, or worldwide perspective. So many people joined.
There's a lot of diversity in the student body that take part in this seminar program every February, and there's also some unusual and welcome diversity in the teaching team. Perhaps I could ask Leon Wolff to explain how that works.
Yes, so what's unique about the Kyoto and Tokyo seminars of this collaboration between Ritsumeikan and ANJeL is that there are a number of courses that are taught collaboratively, usually with an in-house Japan expert, not just from Ritsumeikan University, but from undergraduate law faculties and law schools throughout Japan, who are then paired with, say, one of us or another foreign expert in a particular field. So it's usually either a duo or even small team teaching type delivery. And what that allows for is, as Yamaguchi sensei said, the Japanese expert brings in sort of the deep knowledge, doctrinal knowledge, as well as, for those who are legal sociological, the more up-to-date and recent developments. Whereas us as ANJeL directors, for example, we sort of bring in the broader comparative perspective, sort of some of the underlying theories, and relate these developments to, you know, broader ideas about the relevance of law to Japanese society, globalization, modernization, and so forth. So some of these broader ideas are usually done as a tandem. So it's a way of sort of blending comparative experience into the course. Now that's done in two different ways. So the Kyoto Seminar is sort of like a general overview of the Japanese legal system. So it begins with a history and an overview of Japanese law, and then delves into specific thematic topics such as government and the law, gender and the law, civil justice and the law, popular culture, criminal justice and the law, for example. And the second part, the Tokyo Seminar, which actually came in a few years afterwards. So originally it was just a Kyoto Seminar only. Then there was an extra week tacked on for a few years. That was mainly my idea, because at the time I was running a master's level program in Japanese law, and I had actually simultaneous courses which I was teaching online in Japanese law. And one of them was called Japanese Law in Context, so my students would go to that. And others were doing Japanese law in the economy, and they would go to the Tokyo program. We then sort of welded that into a 7-8 day program, so that it broadened expanse without making it too expensive into 2 weeks. So the Kyoto Seminar is generalist. The Japanese law and economy deals with commercial topics, corporate governance, finance, employment law, and so forth.
Can I ask you if you've got any further comments on what makes the Kyoto and Tokyo seminars in Japanese law so special.
I want to summarize a point that Yamaguchi sensei and Leon just made. Make a second point about the students, and then make a third point about the location. So as I think Yamaguchi sensei and Leon have expanded on, is the diverse teaching approaches, pedagogy if you want to use a technical term, I think is really one of the strengths of that. Some of the typical Japanese teaching styles are fantastically strong. Some of the Australian teaching styles are very good. But as Leon said, we have a diversity of instructors and they each bring their own teaching style. So the students are really exposed to a breadth of teaching styles. And when it works well, which is most of the time, you really get more than just the two independent. You get a plus alpha aspect coming to it. Second one is the teaching mix. And again, Yamaguchi sensei and Leon mentioned this, but if I can enhance this a bit. Roughly in my mind, I have, when I'm teaching this course, a sense that 1/3 or maybe half of the students are from Australia, 1/3 are from Japan, and 1/3 are from other countries. And that creates a very dynamic mix. It means we can speak, when we're speaking in English, from an Australian perspective, but you can triangulate with other countries. We've had many Russians, for example. We've had many Americans, for example. And then you have really the Japan experts. So that then merges with the language question. So on some issues and some topics, our Japanese students are the experts. And therefore, even if the language isn't as fluent as they would like, it gives them standing within the community to assert their positions, which creates a very positive dynamic. We've structurally done that by creating and forcing small group work and these cohorts to emerge. And that has been a very good style. We've seen. Third point is location. And Yamaguchi sensei, behind us has the Kyoto campus, but both the Kyoto and the Tokyo campus, it's important to be in situ. It's important to be in Japan, feeling the experience, but also seeing the law and how it influences behaviors around you. If I can add just a fourth concept, and that is, I think one of the things that has made this successful is there's a lot of experimentation. Over the 15 years, we've tried lots of different things. And most of the time it's worked, but some of the times it's failed horribly. But that really keeps it at the cutting edge, is always pushing the next step. Well, I tried it this year, it didn't really work. What if I tweaked it this way? I tried this combination of teachers and that really didn't work, but what about this combination? We have the students doing this, but maybe we can make that better. So that sense of constantly pushing the edge of pedagogy and experimentation, I think, is one of the things that has also made it one of the finest examples I've seen of teaching any subject anywhere in the world.
Thank you, Kent. And I agree that we've all approached this program in the spirit of Kaizen, continuous improvement, which Japanese manufacturing made famous from the 1980s worldwide, and it's benefited from it. And we're still obviously trying to develop the program because we now have unique challenges from the pandemic. Obviously, we can't run this program next year in Japan, in February at least, and so we've deferred it for a year. I should also add that as part of the program, we've developed a very instructive field trip to Osaka, where we talk with local lawyers, both foreign attorneys and Japanese bengoshi lawyers, whom we interview separately in this series. And we also go to the courts there to observe actual trials and get a real sense of the Japanese law in action. But we can't do that next year either. So my final question to everyone is, how can we pivot to something new for next year? Obviously, this series is part of that by recording a short interviews with many of the co-teachers and co-designers of this program over many years, plus some extra people who've given their valuable time to talk about their specialist subject areas, to encourage students to keep learning even from a distance about what's going on in Japan. But do you have any thoughts about what we might do beyond next year, hopefully when the pandemic has passed and we can resume travel between Australia and Japan? What do you think is that sort of medium-term future for our Kyoto and Tokyo seminar program? So Kent, please start first, and then I'll ask Yamaguchi Sensei.
I'm going to give a slightly contrarian position on the digital experience and then come back to it. I think one of the real keystones and success markers of this course is the in-person capacity and the ability to meet people face-to-face, real, from different cultures and communities, and being able to experience things in real time. So I think that is still an essential element, and I hope that we'll be able to get back to that as soon as possible. That doesn't mean I'm a Luddite and say no digital, but I think digital I would like to see it at the core of what we do. On the digital, I just remind the group that even 10 years ago, Luke wasn't able to travel 1 year and participated the entire thing through video lectures similar to what we're doing today. So we actually have a quite, I would say, advanced of many people experience with it, and we're not afraid. And I think, for example, some of our materials, if we had more of that on in a digital sense, it would allow the students to prepare more so that they could spend that time with other students, with their lecturers, being more active rather than trying to catch up for it. So again, I'm not anti-digital, but I do think one of the core characteristics that makes this successful to date is the personal human aspect.
Now we had a hard situation, so I'm not sure the Kyoto Tokyo seminar will be held next year end, but if the pandemic is ended, so we would like to improve the Kyoto and the Tokyo seminars. So I learned that this Zoom system, so for the first time, I didn't know 10 months ago that useful method. So now we are accepting the Australian student from Australia to Japan, but our Japanese students can learn by using the digital system. So it is very useful for us. So if it is possible, so in spite of the pandemic and ended or not, so we can use this Zoom system to continue the Kyoto seminar and the Tokyo seminar. So I mean that Australian teachers and Japanese teachers teach this digital system, and students have a lecture from this Zoom system and discuss. I hope if the Australian students can join this Zoom system, it is possible, so they can discuss about using this digital system. It's the same as a classroom, I think.
Well, in the short term, in 2021, the Japanese law course that will deliver similar content onshore in Sydney to obviously only the Sydney University law students, it will have the facility of calling up people overseas on Zoom. In fact, some of the students who cannot return to Australia, are still stuck overseas, will be listening to the classroom through Zoom connection anyway. And so we hope to have a blended form of classroom interaction where both students and some of the students plus some of the lecturers potentially or co-lecturers are attending via Zoom. And maybe in the future, when we can get back to meeting face-to-face from 2022 onwards, hopefully in Kyoto and Tokyo for the seminars, we can have a similar blended classroom experience. But I'll leave the last word now for Leon Wolff on this forward-looking question. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. I think I would like to echo Kent's point. I mean, I've been doing online delivery since 2002, before it became necessary or even faddish. And it has its strengths and weaknesses, but for the Kyoto and Tokyo seminars, what really makes it transformative are the relationships. It's the relationships among the students themselves, because they do come from diverse backgrounds. It's amongst ourselves and the students, as we, as Luke was, as Kent was mentioning, it's a blend between lectures and small group discussion and learning. And some of that interaction that occurs is not easily replicable on digital platforms. And then for me too, just to go to Japan and be in Japan is not just an enormous amount of fun and professional pride, I suppose, in participating in this program, but also gets me to reconnect, with my object of study and to access resources that I ordinarily would not be able to get to. So in the future, I imagine that the Kyoto and Tokyo seminars are going to really be a continuity with change, which has been a long-standing theme for the seminars as well as for Japanese law scholarship generally. I see digital platforms, and not just Zoom, but things like Padlet or other ways of digitally collaborating as certainly integral aspects, or things that could supplement, for example, a pre-seminar briefing, or something where information can be conveyed so the actual face-to-face experience is more discursive and therefore more enriching for the students. But I would like to see the pandemic as something that was an interruption to our lives, rather than something that necessarily changes us, because I think the experience from COVID-19 was that relationships matter, social distancing is hard, and the Kyoto and Tokyo seminars have always celebrated that coming together. And my hope is that this can be brought under control and we can continue along that same theme.
Thank you, Leon, and thank you, Professors Yamaguchi and Anderson, for joining us today as well.